Okay, so today we have a really fascinating stack of source material. It's a deep dive into character profiles, some narrative excerpts, and it all details the formation of this fictional punk band called the October Girls.
Hmm.
But this isn't, just a story about a band. It feels more like a precise manual on how internal suffering, especially the kind we try to hide, can be, well, weaponized into art and healing.
It's fascinating, right? Because the text lays out this central paradox that we're going to explore. The most devastating trauma for these women, it didn't come from any overt conflict.
Right.
No screaming matches, no big fights. It came from the complete absence of conflict, from this kind of enforced, suffocating social harmony.
And that's really our mission for this deep dive, to understand how striving for that kind of flawless perfection in life can lead almost inevitably to an internal collapse.
Yeah.
We need to dissect the very specific suppressed suffering of the band's leader, Ji-eun, and then her three bandmates, and figure out why. Why was aggressive three-chord punk rock their only path forward? The source is even given a name, Ensemble Therapy.
And that's what makes these sources so remarkable. They give us the perfect language for this analysis, music theory. They actually use musical terms to describe emotional states, which makes it crystal clear why, for them, noise was the only way back to health.
So let's start with the band's leader, Ji-eun. The sources say her childhood life was the definition of the C major scale.
The C major scale. Think about it. It's pure, it's flawless.
No black keys.
Exactly. No black keys. Harmonically perfect. And that became the standard she felt she had to maintain. She grew up middle class in Seoul. There was no hunger, no visible violence, no tragedy the outside world would even recognize.
So she felt like she didn't have the right to be unhappy.
Precisely. But underneath that smooth surface, the family structure was, well, it was always incompatible. Her original parents were just oil and water.
Her father, Kim Ji-eun, he was the romantic, right? The failed LA guitarist who went bust in business.
Lacked any kind of practical reality sense, as the text puts it.
And her mother was the complete opposite. A brilliant elite realist, a scholar who had to give up her PhD because the father's romantic instability led to an unplanned pregnancy with Ji-eun's older brother.
And that sacrifice, it wasn't a big dramatic fight. It was this foundational, quiet disharmony that just simmered for years.
Okay, and this is where the specific trauma for Ji-eun really begins. Her parents divorce when she's 7, and the split is called a rational rupture.
Yeah. No screaming, no broken dishes. They sat her down at dinner and coolly and rationally told her they were separating because they were better as friends.
And that mature, sophisticated adult agreement, that was a catastrophe for her.
It was. For a 7-year-old, she realized she had lost the privilege of ad-libbing. She couldn't cry, she couldn't throw a tantrum.
Because that would break their mature peace. She'd become a nuisance.
Exactly. It's just heartbreaking. The text says she swallowed her tears, gave her father a formal bow, and said, "Goodbye, Dad, come visit often." She later calls that her first acting role.
Wow. And the praise she got for being so mature just locked that trauma inside.
It cemented it.
Yeah.
And the pressure for perfection immediately doubled.
Yeah.
Her mother, after the divorce, became almost fanatical about preventing any sense of deficiency.
She worked hard, becomes financially secure, and she never blames the father. In fact, she actively encourages Ji-eun's relationship with him.
Right, so her mother's determined happiness becomes just one more thing that Ji-eun feels she has to protect.
And then the new husband, the stepfather, enters the picture. The source calls him the major 7th chord. So, for our listeners who might not be fluent in music theory, what does that mean emotionally?
It's the sound of sweetness, but often it's an excessive sweetness. It's smooth, dreamy, and in this case, almost sickeningly sweet. He was a despairingly good person, just relentlessly kind.
If there was no tension.
0, which meant there was no one to hate, no one to blame.
Which means there was no
tritone. Exactly. The tritone is what musicians call the devil's interval. It's the most unstable, dissonant, fearful sound in Western music. Ji-eun had no sonic outlet, and therefore no justifiable emotional outlet for her grief. She couldn't point to a single flaw in this harmonious life.
And so her suffering was just this cold, silent buildup of grief, a complete loss of her original world.
And she couldn't articulate it. Expressing any dissatisfaction would feel like she was negating her mother's sacrifice and her stepfather's incredible goodness. Her mask became what the sources call the good child complex. It was a desperate camouflage,
A full-time performance.
a constant two-sided routine. She's the dutiful honor student at her mother's perfect home, and then she's the doting daughter praising her struggling biological dad for his golden hands, never letting on that she's ashamed of his failures.
That internal performance must have created immense pressure. The sources describe it as a hot lead chunk sitting on her sternum.
And she develops this volatile, intense urge to just interrupt the domestic bliss, to scream, to create a very specific kind of sonic chaos. The diminished seventh chord,
Which?
the chord of instability, of fear, of panic. It feels unresolved, like question mark hanging in the air. She craved that fearful chaos just to break the boring C major code of her life. She needed instability to validate her internal pain.
And the only person who saw through this, her only anchor to reality, was her older brother.
Her soul connection. He was the only other witness to her lost world. He was the only one who could see through the forced smile.
And this fostered a pretty toxic attachment.
Oh, absolutely. She clung to him obsessively, disrupting his dates, demanding his attention, even using the secret pocket money her stepdad gave her as a form of emotional blackmail to keep him close.
She felt he was the last remaining evidence of her original self.
Right. You are mine. No one can take you away. It's that kind of desperation.
And this clinging is what leads to the tragedy. On her 19th birthday, October 2nd, Ji-eun has a massive anxiety attack.
Yeah. And she calls her brother in desperation. He rushes to help her, and he dies in a traffic accident on the way.
Oh, God.
The guilt was absolute. The silence she had mastered for so long finally it broke her. She believed, I am to blame for calling him, for needing him.
Her response was just total self-punishment. She gets her university acceptance letter and just rejects it, decides she doesn't have the right to live or to get older than her brother was. He was 22.
She described time after that as a puddle that stopped flowing. She was just stuck, suspended.
But her biological father, the failed romantic, he actually steps up.
He does. As a man who understood exactly how a failed person hides, because he was one, he contacts a psychiatrist friend. And the condition for therapy was so simple but so profound. He told the doctor, you don't have to get better. Just don't stay completely stopped.
Just move. Just keep flowing. And that one condition is what brings the other women into the picture. Because Ji-eun wasn't the only one suffocating under this pressure of perfection.
That's the unifying theme for all the October girls. Each of them is defined by a deep, specific trauma that stems from some societal or familial demand for measurable objective perfection.
Okay, let's get into the guitarist, Seo-young. Her pursuit of perfection was entirely technical. She was trying to be a human sequencer.
A human sequencer, aiming for 0.01 second rhythmic accuracy, just trying to get a sliver of recognition from her parents who were totally obsessed with her super successful older brother.
And her breakdown manifested in this terrifyingly mechanical way.
Yeah, she develops this compulsion where all the noise around her, footsteps, clocks, the train, she hears it all as these obsessive 16th or 32nd note rhythms that she has to constantly subdivide in her head.
The source calls it air picking. She's constantly tapping on her thigh to keep up with this internal metronome.
It must have been exhausting. And her breaking point came in a professional recording studio, the click track, the very thing designed to help keep rhythm.
It turned on her.
It sounded like a giant hammer in her headphones. Her hand just froze. She couldn't play the first chord. She just fled.
And now, punk rock's the only thing that helps.
It's the only thing that physically drowns out that internal metronome. The loud, aggressive, simple downstrokes. They let her scream, I am alive. She's using noise as a physical shield against the tyranny of perfect time.
That's incredible. Okay, next up is the bassist, Yuna, the fake Gangnam Beauty. Her trauma is all about financial guilt.
Pure, paralyzing guilt. She's a high-achieving student, law or business, but she comes from a debt-ridden tangerine farm on Jeju Island, and she's terrified of being seen as a failure.
So she creates this facade. She lied to her parents, told them she got a full scholarship.
Exactly. So she maintains this immaculate, wealthy image designer bags, expensive hair, but in reality, she's working these brutal night shifts, physical labor like warehouse loading.
Just to pay off high-interest loans to keep the lie alive.
And this leads to what the source calls her tangerine trauma.
The tangerine trauma.
She can't eat the boxes of fresh tangerines her parents sent her from the farm. She sees them not as a gift, but as a symbol of their financial burden and of her betrayal. So she just gives them all away.
Wow, she can't consume the fruits of their honest labor while she's living this dishonest life. That's powerful.
It really is.
Okay, finally, the drummer, Cherin. The runaway heiress. Her perfection trap was the pressure of elite inherited life.
Total imposter syndrome. Her parents basically bought her way into these elite music schools.
Eh,
And she chose classical percussion, an instrument she hated,
why?
simply because it was the easiest section to get into. It was the path of least resistance for a wealthy student with, maybe not the most talent.
So eventually she snaps, fakes her attendance at a super selective masterclass in New York, but she's actually just hiding out in Seoul.
Right. And her powerful grandfather is covering her rent, but only on the condition that she attends psychiatric therapy.
And here's the irony.
It's a great irony. This wealthy heiress has zero cash. She can't use her credit cards because her family would track her spending. So her bandmates think she's a genuine hardship runaway.
And they buy her convenience store food.
Yeah, ramen, little snacks,
Yeah.
which she secretly loves. She finds this genuine comfort in the low stakes, affordable honesty of it all.
So you have these four women all dealing with these intense internal pressures, all brought together by Ji-eun's father and his psychiatrist friend, this rock enthusiast named Dr. Choi.
And Dr. Choi, he immediately rejects the idea of talk therapy for them. He realized they'd been talking themselves into their masks for years. So he prescribes ensemble therapy.
Gathers them in the soundproof basement of the hospital.
And the first session, it wasn't a rehearsal. The sources call it an accidental explosion. The only instruction was just smash something.
So it was just noise.
Pure chaotic noise. It was that moment where all the repressed anger, the guilt, the oppression, all those suppressed tritones and diminished seventh feelings were finally released through sheer volume and physical effort. They didn't try to harmonize. They just let the noise be honest.
And the relief was thrilling.
Yeah.
So intense it kept them up all night. And that's how the October Girls formed. Out of this shared, desperate need to recreate that sonic release.
Loud, simple three-chord punk with lyrics that were just raw and totally self-deprecating.
But then their therapy accidentally goes public.
Right. Droon's brother, before he died, was developing this small, emotional indie game. His colleagues release it after he passes away. And deep in the game data, they left in a raw, unedited guide vocal Ji-eun had recorded. Just her voice and a guitar.
And the game becomes a huge sleeper hit.
A massive hit. That unvarnished, raw sadness in her voice just resonated so profoundly with players. And the fan requests for an official soundtrack and OST, they just poured in.
Which forced the band, who had only been playing this therapeutic noise for themselves, onto a stage to perform actual music for the first time.
As a way to honor the brother who, in a way, brought them all together. They moved from purely internal therapy to this external application, finding connection not through perfection, but through the shared, beautiful honesty of their brokenness.
They traded a private, suffocating major seventh chord for a public, cathartic power chord.
Exactly.
What a synthesis. We started with the C major scale life, that forced harmony, and we end with the loud simplicity of punk rock. Each member's trauma really did stem from an inability to create honest disharmony in a system demanding flawless appearance.
They had to abandon that sweet, suffocating major seventh chord of their past for the simple, aggressive truth of punk. That music is their collective survival scream. It's the noise they weren't allowed to make in their quiet, perfectly ordered homes.
In a world that's so obsessed with smooth, flawless presentation, with that perfect C major scale, these sources really suggest that genuine healing doesn't require us to achieve perfect internal harmony.
It requires honest noise.
So we'll leave you with this final thought to consider.
What necessary cathartic noise are you currently suppressing in your own meticulously tuned C major life?